Stop whatever you're doing. I don't care if you're eating, if you're in the bathroom, if you're watching Netflix pretending to pay attention to your partner. This is more important. On January 22nd, 2026, three things happened that the media is treating as completely separate stories. They're not. They're the same story. Trump announced at Davos that he's secured full and permanent access to Greenland. That same day, gold hit $4,924, an all-time high. And that same day, silver broke $100 for the first time in human history. Not recent history, all of history, since metal trading has existed. And if that wasn't enough, that same January 22nd, Trump filed a $5 billion lawsuit against J.P. Morgan, the bank that happens to own the largest mountain of physical silver in the world. Three headlines. One day. Coincidence? Please. In this business, there are no coincidences. There's only what they tell you and what they don't tell you. And by the time you finish this video, you're going to understand exactly why gold and silver are about to explode in a way we haven't seen in 45 years. I'm Carter. I've been telling you for years that the monetary system based on colored pieces of paper has an expiration date. And for years, your brother-in-law, your coworkers, and the TV economists told you I was crazy, that I was some conspiracy nut, that gold was a relic of the past. Well, those same people are now buying gold at nearly $5,000 an ounce, wondering why they didn't buy sooner. Welcome to the club, champs. You're late, but you made it. Today, I'm not just here to say I told you so, even though I've earned it. I'm here to explain what's really happening, why Greenland changes absolutely everything, and what this means for your money. Because this affects you, whether you own gold or not, whether you own silver or not, whether you have stocks, funds, a retirement plan, or cash stuffed under your mattress. This is about you. Let's go. Let's start with what just happened with Greenland. On Wednesday, January 22nd, at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Donald Trump met with Mark Rutte, the Secretary General of NATO. The meeting lasted less than it takes to watch an episode of your favorite show. And when he came out, Trump posted on Truth Social that they had formed the framework of a future agreement regarding Greenland and, in fact, the entire Arctic region. He immediately withdrew the threat of 10% tariffs he was going to impose on February 1st on 8 European countries, including Denmark, France, Germany, and the UK. Those tariffs were going to jump to 25% in June if they didn't give him Greenland. Well, they're no longer needed. Why? Because according to Trump, he already got what he wanted. And what exactly did he want? Here's where it gets interesting. When reporters asked what this framework agreement included, Trump said three words that should make your hair stand on end. He said security and minerals. Hold on a second. He didn't just say security. He didn't just say national defense. He said minerals. And when they asked if there would be a time limit on American access to Greenland, he literally responded, the time limit is infinite. There is no limit. It's forever. Total access. Permanent. No expiration date. To an island that officially isn't for sale. Denmark keeps saying Greenland isn't for sale. The Prime Minister of Greenland says he doesn't know what's in the agreement. But somehow, Trump got what he wanted without firing a single shot. It's like when your mom says there's no dessert and half an hour later you're eating the last piece of cake. There's always a way if you know how to negotiate. Okay, Carter, you might say, why should I care about an island covered in ice in the middle of nowhere? Why should I care what Trump does with the Danes? You should care. A lot more than you think. Because underneath that ice is a treasure chest worth between $700 billion and $4.4 trillion. Yes, trillion with a T. I didn't misspeak. The American Action Forum, a respected economic think tank in Washington, estimates that Greenland's known mineral and energy resources are worth over $4.4 trillion. To put that in perspective, that's more than Germany's entire GDP, more than the UK's GDP. It's more than Apple and Microsoft's market caps combined. All of that sitting under the ice of an island where 56,000 people live, most of them fishermen. What exactly is down there? The Geological Survey of Denmark, which has been studying the island for decades, estimates that Greenland has up to 36 million metric tons of rare earth elements. That would make it the second largest deposit in the world, behind only China. The Kvanefjeld project in the south has 11 million tons of reserves, including 370,000 tons of heavy rare earths, which are the most valuable and hardest to get. The Tan Breeze project has 28 million tons with 27% heavy rare earths. But it's not just rare earths. Greenland has copper, essential for electrical infrastructure, graphite, key for electric vehicle batteries, gallium and tungsten, critical for military applications, zinc, gold, silver, iron, uranium. The U.S. Geological Survey estimates that the offshore basins contain up to 31 billion barrels of oil equivalent, similar to all of America's proven crude reserves. And it has deposits of 25 of the 34 minerals that the European Commission classifies as critical raw materials. It's literally the biggest unopened treasure chest left on the planet. It's like discovering that your weird neighbor, the one who never talks to anyone, has an original Picasso in his garage, 3 classic Ferraris, and an oil well in his backyard. And all this time you thought he just had cats. But here's the million-dollar question. Why is the United States so desperate to get these minerals that it's willing to threaten its own NATO allies with tariffs? Why did Trump even talk about using military force against an allied country? Why are they willing to spend between $700 billion and $1.5 trillion? The answer boils down to one word: China. And this is where the Greenland story connects directly to the explosion in gold and silver. If you find this topic interesting and want to understand how to protect your money in this new world of resource wars, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell. What's coming in the next few months is going to be historic. China controls 69% of global rare earth production. But that's not the worst part. The worst part is that China controls 90% of rare earth processing worldwide. You can pull the mineral out of the ground in Australia, Brazil, Africa, wherever you want. But if you want to turn it into something useful, into a magnet for an electric motor, into a component for a smartphone, you have to send it to China. And in 2025, China decided to use that control as an economic weapon. Chinese export restrictions caused a 59% drop in rare earth magnet exports to the United States in a single month. Tesla had to slow production because they didn't have magnets for the motors. Ford paused entire factories. General Motors ran around looking for alternative suppliers like a chicken with its head cut off. American electric car production lines grinding to a halt because there weren't enough Chinese magnets. That happened last year in the world's largest economy. And trust me, that was just the appetizer. Because on January 1st, 2026, less than a month ago, China took the next step. They officially reclassified silver as a strategic material. It's no longer an ordinary commodity like wheat or cotton. Now, silver is in the same regulatory category as rare earths. And they published a list of only 44 companies authorized to export silver for the next 2 years. 44 companies in a country of 1.4 billion people. To export silver from China now, you need to produce at least 80 tons of silver per year and have credit lines of over $30 million. Small and medium businesses are completely shut out of the export market. Why does this matter so much? Because China controls between 60 and 70% of the global supply of refined silver. China is the dominant hub for silver refining in the world. When they restrict exports, the whole world feels it. An industry insider told the Securities Times, which is a Chinese state media outlet, that this policy formally elevates silver to strategic material status, placing its export controls at the same level as rare earths. It's exactly the same playbook. First, they classify the resource as strategic, then they restrict exports, and then they use the supply as political and economic leverage. They did it with rare earths. Now they're doing it with silver. Even Elon Musk criticized the move on X, saying silver is necessary for many industrial processes. But China couldn't care less what Musk says. They're stockpiling silver for their own solar panels and electric vehicles while turning off the tap for the rest of us. Economic warfare, pure and simple, without firing a single bullet. And while Trump was negotiating access to Greenland and China was shutting off the silver supply, precious metals were making history. Gold hit $4,924 on January 22nd, all-time high. Never in history had gold cost this much, an 80% increase in just 12 months. In 2025, gold rose 67%, the best year in decades. And you know what Wall Street analysts were saying a year ago when gold was at $2,800? They said it was way too expensive, that it had topped out, that it was time to sell. They're wrong more often than a psychic octopus predicting soccer matches. But hey, Eight-figure bonuses every December, no matter what. What are those same analysts saying now? Goldman Sachs has a target of $4,900 by the end of this year, which we've almost hit in January. ICBC Standard Bank, one of the largest banks in the world, sees gold reaching $7,150. $7,000, almost double where we are now. Why is this happening? Three fundamental reasons. First, central banks around the world are buying gold at record levels, diversifying away from the dollar. For the first time in modern history, central banks' gold reserves exceed their reserves of U.S. Treasury bonds. The people who print the money would rather hold gold than the debt of the country that prints the world's reserve currency. They don't tell you that on the evening news. Second reason, the dollar had its worst year since 2017, falling almost 10%. When the dollar drops, gold rises. Third, geopolitical tensions everywhere. Greenland, Venezuela, Iran, the criminal investigation against Powell, everything pushing toward the ultimate safe haven. And that safe haven is gold. But if gold seems impressive, wait until you hear what silver has done, because silver has achieved something that had never happened before. On Friday, January 23rd, silver broke $100 per ounce. It touched $102.95 during the session, $100 for an ounce of silver, not even when the Hunt brothers tried to corner the entire market in 1980 and nearly brought down the financial system. Back then it reached almost 50 before the government changed the rules in the middle of the game. This time it hit double that, and nobody had to intervene. A rise of over 214% in 12 months, the best year for silver since 1979. Exactly 1 year ago, silver was trading at $31. Analysts said it might reach 35 or 40 by year-end. They were off by a factor of 3. Bank of America's target for 2026, $309 per ounce. More than triple from here. And if you adjust the 1980 high for inflation, it would be about $200 today. We haven't even reached that level yet. Peter Schiff, the economist who predicted the 2008 crisis when all of Wall Street said everything was fine, said last week we'd see $100 this week. We did. Why is it rising so much? Is it speculation? No. It's pure supply and demand. And there's one player that explains everything. JP Morgan has 750 million ounces of physical silver in their vaults. 750 million, the largest private silver reserve in human history. Almost an entire year of global mining production sitting in one bank's vaults. Just between June and October of 2025, they added another 21 million ounces to that mountain. Remember when people called me a conspiracy theorist for saying JP Morgan was manipulating silver? In 2020, they paid $920 million in fines for manipulating the precious metals market through spoofing. The largest fine ever paid for market manipulation. But it didn't make the main news because they don't want you to know. For years, they maintained a short position of 200 million ounces, crushing the price every time it tried to rise. But between June and October of last year, something changed. They closed the entire short position, 200 million ounces liquidated, and they flipped completely long. Now they have 750 million ounces and they want the price to go up. It's like the neighborhood bully who spent years with his boot on your neck suddenly gets up, offers you a hand, and says, "Come on, let's go up together now." Why? I don't know for certain. But I do know that the same day metals made history, Trump filed a $5 billion lawsuit against them, the bank with the most silver in the world, the day silver hits a record. Think about that for a second. The bank that controlled the price of silver for decades, that paid the largest manipulation fine in history, that accumulated the world's largest private reserve, now has the President of the United States suing them publicly. Political pressure, personal revenge, or is there something else we're not seeing? I don't have all the answers, but I know how to recognize when there are too many coincidences together to be coincidences. Connect the dots yourself. And what's happening now in the physical market makes the GameStop squeeze look like child's play. In early January, in just 7 days, 33 million ounces of silver were physically withdrawn from the COMEX. The COMEX is the most important futures market in the world. And in 1 week, 26% of the registered inventory disappeared. People don't want paper contracts. They want real metal. Traders are rolling contracts backward to take immediate physical delivery. They don't want to wait. Silver lease rates. What it costs to borrow physical silver shot up to 8% annualized. Normal is 0.3. In December, they hit 200%. 200% to rent silver because there isn't enough. The Swiss refinery Metalor, one of the largest in the world, announced they weren't returning to the market until January because there was no metal available. Chinese and Indian buyers contacting miners directly, offering $10 above spot price to secure physical, bypassing all the middlemen. There are companies calling miners directly in Mexico and Peru, offering to prepay for the next 6 months of production. That's not normal investing. That's panic. That's people who know that if they don't secure the metal now, they're not going to get it later. And these aren't TikTok speculators. They're solar panel manufacturers, electronics companies, sovereign wealth funds, serious people with serious money making desperate moves. And here's the data that should keep you up at night if you hold silver in ETFs or funds. In Dubai and Japan, physical silver trades at an 80% premium over the COMEX price. The March contract closed at $72. In Dubai, the lowest price for a 1-ounce coin was $99. Paper says one thing, physical says another. Which one do you think reflects reality? The current ratio is 356 ounces of paper for every physical ounce. It's like a restaurant selling 356 reservations for the same table. 355 are going to eat air. COMEX inventories have fallen 70% since 2020. London lost 40%. Shanghai at decade lows. Those who hold paper will end up with paper. Those who hold metal will end up with metal. And you, what do you have? Now, if Greenland has all those minerals and the United States just secured access, doesn't that solve the supply problem? This is the trap nobody tells you about. Greenland has the minerals, but developing them will take decades and hundreds of billions of dollars. There are only 2 active mines on the entire island, one gold mine and one anorthosite mine. There are no roads connecting settlements, less than 100 miles paved in a territory larger than Mexico, no electrical grid, each village generates its own electricity with diesel, no ports for heavy industrial cargo, the population is 56,000 people, mostly fishermen. Anthony Marchese from Texas Mineral Resources testified before Congress saying that if you go to Greenland for minerals, you're talking billions and billions over decades. And you know what's interesting? China has spent 30 years looking for rare earths all over the world and has barely touched Greenland. They already have an option on 60% of Kvanefjeld. If it were easy, they'd already be there. They're not stupid. It's like someone telling you there's oil on Mars. Great. How do you bring it back? By when? Oil on Mars doesn't solve running out of gas tomorrow. Silver from Greenland in 2035 doesn't solve today's deficit. And today's deficit is brutal. 5 consecutive years of structural deficit. Since 2021, demand has exceeded supply every year. Accumulated deficit of 820 million ounces, more than a year of global production. In 2025, demand reached 1,240 million ounces, but only 813 million were produced. A gap of 400 million. Where does it come from? From inventories. From the vaults, which are emptying. Why so much demand? Solar panels. 230 million ounces per year, growing 25% annually. Each panel uses 20 grams of silver, and there's no substitute because silver has the highest electrical conductivity of any element. The TOPCon technology that dominates the solar market requires 50% more silver than previous panels. Electric vehicles use between 25 and 50 grams compared to 15 to 28 for gas cars. Artificial intelligence data centers consuming electricity like cities and feeding off solar. Microsoft pouring $80 billion into data centers. A 500 megawatt solar array needs 300 tons of silver. That iPhone you have contains silver. The computer you're watching this on contains silver. Your neighbor's Tesla contains silver. And there isn't enough for everyone. So what comes next? Trump is about to name a new Fed chair. The finalists are Kevin Hassett from the White House, Kevin Warsh, former governor, Christopher Waller, current governor, and Rick Rieder from BlackRock. Trump wants rates at 1% or lower. If he puts in someone dovish who cuts rates, it's rocket fuel for gold and silver. Low rates weaken the dollar and make metals more attractive than bonds. Historically, during rate cuts with inflation above 2%, Gold rises 13% on average. Silver doubles or triples. Plus, there's a criminal investigation against Powell, adding uncertainty. When central bank independence is in question, where do you go? To gold. Goldman sees 7,150. Bank of America sees 309 in silver. The same people who said gold was a relic. Why did they change? Because they know what's coming. Look, I'm not your financial advisor, but I'll tell you what I see. I see governments fighting over rocks under the ice because they know the paper system has an expiration date. I see central banks hoarding gold while saying everything's fine. I see China restricting silver while stockpiling it. I see JP Morgan sitting on 750 million ounces after manipulating the market for decades. And I see a lot of good, hardworking people who have no idea that the ground beneath their feet is shaking. People with portfolios full of promises, people who trust that the system will take care of them. I have family too. I have savings too. That's why I've been talking about this for years, not to sell fear. So you understand before it's too late, the monetary reset isn't coming. It's already here. Greenland is the proof. A president threatening allies over minerals. China shutting off the silver supply. Gold and silver at all-time highs. JP Morgan sitting on the largest silver mountain in history. All on the same day. These aren't coincidences. It's the system cracking at every seam. I've been doing this for 12 years. I've seen bubbles, I've seen crashes, I've seen manipulation, and I've seen recoveries, but I've never seen a convergence like this. I've never seen governments openly fighting over minerals. I've never seen paper prices diverge this much from physical prices. I've never seen central banks buying gold like they know something we don't. Something has changed. And those who understand it first are going to be in a very different place than those who understand it late. What you did yesterday doesn't matter anymore. What you do today can change your future. If this opened your eyes, share it with someone who needs it, subscribe if you haven't. And remember, in a world of paper promises, only what you can touch is real. Take care of yourself and take care of your money, because nobody else is going to do it for you.